Welcome back to Business Stories from Mass and Mike here on Company Saviors. Today, me and Mike are going to be speaking about a subject: how to avoid making stupid mistakes. Because, for example, I find it to some extent absolutely hilarious when I watched like replays of F1 the other day that you could put the wrong tires on a car in such a high intense sport. It should be the most simple thing because it's not like fucking up putting them on, which is the hard part. It's just taking the right tires out in the right kind of order, which inspired me to write out an episode for how you could do it in business as well. So, Mike, what is one silly small mistake you have made?
A really silly small mistake I made was initially not recognizing the value of getting a mentor. And at the time, it was a small mistake because my business was really tiny. I didn't really realize that I needed help. But once I realized that, it was like, oh man, that small mistake at the beginning could have really affected things. And another silly small mistake I've made before is not tying my shoes at a
What?
presentation.
What? How?
Yeah, walking up on the stage,
How?
getting ready
How?
to talk.
You can't do that.
Exactly.
You can't do
How
that.
do you get so far into your own head that you forgot to tie your shoes, right? This
Now,
kind of thing happens.
the thing
You
for me
just have to
is,
laugh
how do you not know this?
because we get too focused. I think that's how most people make silly
I'm
mistakes is
I'm
they
not
just
focused enough, it sounds like.
on one thing and it forgets other things. Like how many times have you been talking to someone and you weren't really aware of who else was around, and you said something that was embarrassing to you?
That happened before. Sometimes I
Yeah.
just forget where I am. I sometimes some so a long time ago I yelled something out in the train filled with people that I shouldn't, and I won't say it here because we would have to censor it anyway. I was on the phone with somebody and I yelled it. Must have been a couple, like 100 people in that train. Everybody heard me. So yeah, I can relate to sometimes we get so in our own head we don't know the environment that we're in. So yeah, I think that's something that comes with you not taking the time to breathe, which is a silly mistake
Yes.
I've made. Like I get so into what I'm doing, I forget. Like example, let's say when I used to work in a shoe store, I would get so focused in on what the customer said and filling those specific needs that I forgot maybe they just don't know of the better options that I could recommend. For example, you don't know something, you don't know you can buy something if you don't know it's there.
Right.
And an expert in any field, if that's a store, a mentor, e-commerce, whatever, is going to be much more knowledgeable than you. So if you're an expert in any field, don't get so focused on what the customer wants. Hear what they want and then think what is the best solution for them. Because at the end of the day, you are the expert. They are coming to you with a problem and they want you to solve it. They're buying the solution. That's the only thing that they're
Exactly.
buying.
I saw a classic case of this back when I was working in the rocket business. We had very detailed drawings that would go out to the shop floor for the manufacturing of the rocket. And I noticed one of the foremen who was helping put this thing together was holding the paper up and he's looking at it. He's holding up toward the lights at the ceiling, but he's looking at it from behind the paper. And the reason he was doing that, so to him, the image is backwards. But the reason
Yes.
he's doing that is because the way that the parts were sitting in the tooling was how it was oriented. So in order to make sure everything was right, that's how he had to view the drawing. And that was just such a silly mistake. All we had to do was change, we call them fixtures that hold the parts. We had to change the fixture so that it put everything in the same view as the paper drawing that he's looking at. Very simple mistake, but that could have caused a lot of problems.
It just sounds like it would be bloody annoying, basically.
It was so frustrating. But,
Like,
in our defense, he made the mistake of not coming and telling us that was how we had to look at the drawing. He could have said, "Wait a minute, this thing's reversed to what I'm seeing in front of me here."
well, I thought you was about to say somebody just broke the computer because they didn't want to fix it.
Yeah, I've seen that happen too. I mean, I think we've all seen someone get mad at their phone or their computer and just throw it
Ooh,
down and break it.
I'm one of them sometimes.
No doubt.
Like technology, like because a computer is just supposed to work. And
Yes.
bringing this back to the subject of silly mistakes, when it comes to like a silly mistake, the first thing you need to be aware do is actually be aware of the mistake. You need to become aware of it because before you can solve the problem. That's where
Yes.
reflection comes in. So actually, I like to take at least 10 minutes every day just a reflection, and that can happen whenever. I can do something else if I'm like for example doing the dishes. I don't need to think about doing that, so I can reflect whilst doing it. It comes to acknowledging the problem. Actually, be like, yeah, this is kind of stupid because sometimes you see something that's upside down, like you just turn your head around and be like, all right,
Yeah.
it ain't fixed, though. It ain't broke. Don't fix it. Why? So, but then like think about how much time you're spending extra looking at this drawing, for example, because it's upside down and you have to adjust your head to that. So it takes you 2 minutes more each time you're looking at the drawing to because it's upside down. It takes you 5 minutes to fix it. So if you have to look at the drawing 3 times, you might as well fix it.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and that's one why we call them silly small mistakes because you don't really notice them.
I think it's really helpful in business to always remember that being a perfectionist won't get you very far. It kind of will almost prevent you from doing what you need to do. So, we want to be detailed and we want to do things to a very high level of excellence. But if you're not a neurosurgeon, if you're not dealing with some super complicated thing like that, then you don't really need perfection. What you need is something that works better than what the customer is expecting. So you can deliver something better than what they're paying for. Everybody wins. And I've brought an example to show us today. This painting on the wall over my head is a painting of a bluebird that I did. If you look very if you look very very carefully at that painting up close, you'll see some mistakes in there. As soon as you're about 2 feet away, you don't see them anymore. And in business, I encourage everyone to think a little bit like an artist sometimes about what you're delivering. In this case, the goal was to paint a picture of a bluebird, which is what we have. It was to make it look nice, which it does. And it was to enjoy the process of creating, which I did. But the goal was never to have it completely perfect. If I wanted it completely 100% perfect, I would have gone and bought a real bird. So when you're creating, when you're building things in your business, as you said, reflect, spend time reflecting every day. Think about the mistakes that were made that day, which ones really matter, and which ones add to the picture in a way that just makes it better. And, I'll close with this thought. Everybody knows the difference between using an Apple and using an Android phone. One of them spent a lot of time trying to make it functional but never perfect. That was Apple. The other spent a lot of time making sure that lots and lots and lots of different developers and people could create things, which was Android. Different approaches. At the core, they're both phones. They both let you make phone calls and send texts. So think about the product you're creating, who your market is, and what do they really need, and give them something a little bit extra. So back to you, Mus.
I'm just sitting here thinking which phone's best. Well, that's the real
Which
question. That's on everybody's
whichever
mind.
one you like, whichever one you like,
Uh,
they all work.
I just want to start a war in the comments, basically.
Okay. Well, then I'm gonna say Apple.
We can't agree. Yeah, of course, that would piss
Okay.
everybody else off. So yes, Apple. Apple's the best. If you disagree, let us know in the comments. Good for
Yeah.
interaction.
Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun with this, folks. Have some comments.
But yeah,
And yeah,
I think it really, as you comes down to with the phones, it comes down to what kind of problem are you trying to solve? Because the problem that Android and Apple are not the same. The problem they're trying to solve is not the same, basically.
correct.
Apple is way more of fashion than it is technology. It's way closer to fashion. So also
Yeah.
think into that.
Fashions.
But yeah, like don't make it perfect because if you give a like me an old iPhone or an old Android, Samsung, whatever phone, I would not I would get so frustrated using it because I'm used to the new iPhone and like using an iPhone 1 and iPhone 2. Never even had one of those. That, I can just imagine. I just remember the first smartphone I got, how bad it was compared to it. But it solved the problem. It worked. People bought it. It wasn't perfect. Like this iPhone right here isn't perfect. Like the next one's better anyway. Keep on developing, and Apple is the company in the world that makes the most money. So that should be
Yep.
your lesson and why you don't need to make anything perfect. They're still work in progress.
That's a good example.
Exactly. So I think we're gonna leave that as our last pointer. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to click like and subscribe, and still tell us which phone is best down below.